Thanks for joining us for another special edition, Campaign 2024 of Take Two. Thanks so much for joining us, Glenn Wright, Congressional District 3. We're about a month out from the election. Thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure.
It's a busy time, and you said you've been visiting your district, going to each county and talking to people. What's the main issue they have right now as we head into the election?
Well, I think everybody is talking about the economy, but it depends. The economy is different in different parts of the district. It's a very big district, very diverse economy. I've had 3 visits out to the Uinta Basin now, met with 3 county commissions there, and I attended the Energy Summit last week. Their entire issue is energy.
Yeah.
If you go down to San Juan County, I visited the Aneth Chapter House, which is about as close as you get to the Four Corners area as possible. And they have completely different issues that are completely divorced from the rest of the state because they're caught between the Navajo Nation, which is a couple 100,000 people, and there's 7,500 people in Utah. Trying to get help from both the Navajo Nation and the state of Utah is very difficult for them, and they have enormous problems.
What can Congress do to help the Four Corners region? Because like you said, they have very different problems.
I think we really have to try to come up with some creative solutions where we work with both the Navajo Nation through the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the state of Utah and the BLM to see if we can produce some land that they can do some independent economic development on.
And do you feel like that's something that would be possible through Congress?
I think it's possible through Congress if we get agreement here. We have so much disagreement on public lands with the establishment in this state. I think we need to start talking more productively with the federal government about those issues.
Do you believe that Governor Cox's lawsuit helps in that regard of maybe gaining control of some of those public lands so that Utah can make some decisions?
No, I think it makes it worse because it increases the animosity between the state and the federal government. The reality is on these public lands issues, there are 2 legal issues there that people should remember. Article 4, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution says the U.S. Congress has complete authority for disposal of public lands. And the enactment document for the state of Utah says that the state of Utah forever gives up any right to public lands. But there are ways we can get better access to public lands. In all the public lands areas, you have 9 sections out of 4 sections out of 36, 1/9 of the public lands in the state, are actually assigned to the state, and Sitla manages them. But they're in difficult places to take advantage of. We've had very successful land trades. Emory County was a very good example. And we can do that in other parts of the state and make more accessible land for economic development.
I'm sure it's something of great interest in many of our counties. I want to switch to Duchesne again, where energy really is their lifeblood. It keeps them going, it keeps them alive and ticking. What are their biggest concerns? I know that there's a move away from oil and coal and going electric, but that would take away what they're doing.
Yes. The Uinta Basin is really interesting. Energy is their life. And I'm a big supporter of addressing climate change and electrifying our economic environment, our environment to reduce carbon footprint is really important. But we can't ignore the people that live in those counties. Duchesne County particularly is oil. They are going to be the victim of the electrification of transportation over the next 20 years. There are essentially 4 major automobile markets in the world: China, Europe, US, and the rest of the world, roughly equal in size. China and Europe are already well on the way to complete electrification of automobiles. By 2035, they're going to be probably 100% new cars. We're probably going to be more like 40 to 50% here.
So what does Duchesne do to survive?
And they need to find some different ways of doing business. What's the next economic activity in Duchesne County? I think the national forests could be part of that. Creating biofuels from forest waste. We have enormous potential forest fire problems in the national forest there. But aside from that, what I got out of the Energy Summit last week, there are pretty significant geothermal opportunities in the Uinta Basin. And exploiting those might be another excellent way to build up the economy and figure out what's the next act in Duchesne. Uinta County is a little bit different. They're mostly natural gas. Natural gas is going to last for a while. I can't predict when we're going to stop using natural gas, but there's also ways to use the natural gas that will provide a zero carbon footprint. And actually the API, American Petroleum Institute, is in favor of a carbon fee and dividend program. And what that allows them to do is to sequester an equivalent amount of carbon produced from their oil and gas industry. And the fact that they have deep wells there and geothermal capability will give them the opportunity to do a lot more of that in the future. I've read that there's a good possibility that marine fuels in the future are going to be made from ammonia. And natural gas is a normal raw material for ammonia. And if you have geothermal energy that can crack that natural gas, turn it into ammonia, we may have a new product for the Uinta Basin in producing marine fuels of the future. That's probably 10 or 20 years off, though.
So it sounds like there needs there's some options, maybe some innovation in there.
Yes.
You mentioned forest fires, and right now we're dealing with 6 states right now, mostly in the southeast right now. They're dealing with a natural disaster. The hurricane right now obviously obliterating the coastline in Florida, but even worse, we're seeing flooding in eastern Tennessee. We're seeing it in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. What is the federal government's role right now in making sure that they get back on their feet? And it looks like this is going to take some major digging out.
This is going to take major digging out. Yes, you're absolutely right there. FEMA is very well capable of doing it, but they're going to need funds. I heard the president speak a couple of hours ago, and he may be calling Congress into a special session to allocate additional funds for FEMA to take care of that devastation in the southeast. It's going to amount to billions of dollars. There have been communities that have completely wiped off the map from what I've been seeing this morning. But I think the thing we really have to think about in the future is how do we address climate change? That was a result of essentially a massive intensification of a hurricane, from tropical storm to hurricane, that went up through a part of the country and normally it would have been a lot weaker when it got to that point.
There have been some very big ones, yeah.
It would have been a lot weaker by the time it got there. If we do not stop climate change, it's only going to get worse.
What do you say to people that say, okay, climate change is happening, but it might be cyclical in the earth and there's nothing we can do right now?
There are things we can do. The science is pretty clear about that. I know there are a lot of people who are climate deniers on it, but when I was on Summit County Council for 6 years, I would meet with the Summit County Farm Bureau every spring, and listening to the farmers, the old-time farmers, the guys who have been doing it for 40 or 50 years, they have seen the snow-rain line move up the mountain. You're not telling them anything new.
Yeah, definitely changes there. While we're talking about the southern states, I've also seen concern over some of those states that are sending their National Guard troops to the Middle East right now, when they're saying, we'd like to be keeping them at home because we obviously have these crises here. Sure. There's a big concern right now between our troops, our finances, where they should go. Should we be spending that money in the homeland right now, where we have problems where it's the southern border, it's these states that need FEMA help, or do we send more and more money to Ukraine and Israel? Is there a way to do all of it, or at some point are we going to have to choose?
Well, I think we have to choose, but the choice is how safe do we, how do we make the U.S. the safest environment that we can have? And the 70 years since World War II, we've built a system of alliances. We're a leader of many of these alliances, but we're not alone. And a lot of all these parts of the world that we're active in, we have help from many, many other countries. We are the biggest and we have the strongest military, but we have enormous resources coming from other countries, particularly in Ukraine. The other NATO countries have been, actually they have stepped into the breach when Congress refused to fund aid to Ukraine, which has really helped the situation in Ukraine deteriorate. We need to strengthen our alliances, not weaken our alliances, like one of our presidential candidates wishes to do.
So There is a split when you listen to voters right now about whether they keep sending money to Ukraine. I think people realize why it's important to keep the world safe there in that region and also keep balance. But I think there's concern that maybe there isn't the accountability needed when you're sending money to Ukraine. And is the money being used wisely?
There's accountability issues everywhere. We have to do the best we can. But I think we have to consider that I believe that Ukraine is an important national issue for us. I spent 6 years in the Air Force. I did 2 tours in the Vietnam War. And after that, I spent almost a year and a half in Europe flying a business jet, flying NATO troops around Europe. I flew the Berlin Corridor, flew over the Iron Curtain and the Berlin Wall. And I think it is appalling that there are elements in our country that are willing to let the war criminal from Moscow create a new Iron Curtain in the middle of Europe. This is an incredible national security issue, and supporting our alliance is incredibly important.
Democrats right now are split in the party right now as to whether more support should be with Israel or Palestine or what happens in that region. Where do you stand?
I will say that I think Israel certainly had the absolute right to retaliate against Hamas. I would say that their acts have been heavily counterproductive. Another thing I'm an expert in is the damage from bombs. As a forward air controller, I put in hundreds of airstrikes and witnessed thousands of 500-pound bombs go off. And when I saw the first 500-pound bomb go through an apartment building in Palestine, in Gaza, I said, this is not going to be the right way to end this war.
What is the right way?
Well, I think the right way, and I think it goes back to what Secretary Austin said at the time. We can't defeat Hamas as a terrorist organization if we're creating more recruits for them every time we kill a few of those people. And the Israelis have been playing whack-a-mole on leaders. Yes, they've done a great job of destroying the leadership of Hamas and now Hezbollah, but there's tens of thousands of additional adherents of those organizations. They're going to pop to the top. Look at what we did after 9/11. We spent 20 years in various wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, essentially playing whack-a-mole on terrorist leaders. How is that situation going to resolve? I don't know that the U.S. has a whole lot of impact on it. You have the leadership of Hamas and the current government of Israel who have identical goals. A one-state solution where the other side goes away. Until the population of those countries, Palestine and Israel, say, we need some new governments that are willing to work with each other and create a peaceful two-state solution, we're going to have continuing problems there.
Is it something the U.S. can help with, or is it out of our hands?
I think we can help by continuing to badger people and trying to get them to negotiate. We don't have a lot of control over either side. I think we have to use our presence in the world and as an advocate for freedom and democracy to say, people of Palestine, people of Israel, you need to think about what your future is. Is it a peaceful future with two states that can get along with each other, or is it a forever war? They've been fighting each other for 76 years.
Back on the home front, we have negotiations that are going on right now, a dock worker strike that could shut down the eastern seaboard and could shut down the U.S. economy largely, whether you're talking about produce or all of the goods that are coming in ahead of the holidays. Is there a place for the government or the president to call in and say, what can I do, or Congress to help get something decided here? Or is this something where you have to let the free markets battle it out?
Well, the labor union and the port operators those are the key operators involved, and they're going to have to come to some kind of conclusion eventually. Can the president, can Congress encourage them, bring them together around the table and say, look, this is going to be bad for the country. How about getting your act together, folks, for the good of the country? I think we have to look at what's happened in wages in the labor sector, though, over the last, probably 10 years or so. And I don't know the details of what the ILA is asking for. what their current wages are, what the increases have been over the last 5 or 10 years. I wouldn't even begin to have a solution on how to get out of that problem. But I think with everything we do in government and society, talking together is better than fighting.
Absolutely. We're about out of time. Just really quickly, the border is a big issue, and it's something that I think both sides are realizing is a problem. What is the fix? Does it need to be done in Congress, or should the president be solving this by executive action right now?
The president can do some things in executive action, as he has, but anything permanent has to be done by Congress. And I will point out that the day after Biden was inaugurated, he had a comprehensive immigration bill sent to Congress that nothing has happened to.
But he also undid everything that Trump did. Was that part of the problem?
Part of what he did had to do with when the COVID
Remain in Mexico.
Yeah, remain in Mexico, but it was under a health department policy because of COVID. What we need is a comprehensive solution. I think the bill that was in Congress could have done a lot for national security. I visited the border back in January. I spoke with the recent mayor of Calexico, California, and I talked with a border agent there. They desperately need more help down there. But in Calexico, things were pretty much under control. And we saw a border wall there. Within the urban areas along the border, we have a border wall because you can't just walk from one street to the other.
So is that part of the answer?
That's part of the answer within the urban areas, but we already have those for the most part. But the bill that was killed in Congress at the request of Trump would have increased the Border Patrol by about double. And it would have provided funds to stop fentanyl coming through the border crossing, which is mostly where they're coming through. But border security alone is not the total solution. Over the last immigration reform was in the 80s, when Reagan and
we have about 30 seconds left here.
And Congress came up with a comprehensive reform. Since that time, we have essentially invited people to our country because we allow them to work here and we don't enforce workplace immigration controls. It allows people to come in from desperate situations. I mean, you look at the people coming in through Panama, through desperate situations to get to our country to work. But when they get here, many of them are abused. They're underpaid, they may work in unsafe conditions. They have no recourse because if they complain, we'll call ICE on you. So we have created a workforce of abused workers, but we need them for our economy. If you look at our housing crisis right now, one of the issues in our housing crisis, we don't have enough construction workers. We need more immigration. Immigration reform, legal immigration.
Okay.
We need more legal immigration.
And if people want to know more about your stances on immigration and I'm sure the economy, where can they find more information? I feel like we need another hour to tackle all the issues.
I would be happy to come and talk with you for another hour, Heidi.
Yes.
Give me some more time.
So if people want to come meet you, are there more chances before the election, or is there somewhere online they can go for more information?
Wright for Congress is a very good Google search. My team over there, it's off stage right now, has done a great job of making me very searchable.
Excellent.
In the Google world, and you can see all of my policies there. I have a environmental caucus I'm going to tonight. I'm going to be at the UVU campus talking to students on Thursday, and there we'll have a debate on the 17th of October, and as more events come up, we'll put them out online.
Excellent. Well, thank you for spending part of your afternoon with us. Again, Glen Wright, Utah's Congressional District 3. If you want more information, we'll post it all for you online. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
I need more time.
I know.
Another
you need
hour.
more time.
Another
I know.
hour.
You're
Come
so well
on.
educated. Thank you.